Hello and welcome to FTT Chats. I'm Liz Lumley, and this is where we sit down with some of the great and the good of FinTech for a bit of a chat. So today I'm speaking to Jeppe Rindom, who's CEO of Pleo. Hello, Jeppe, how are you?
Hello, Liz. I am doing really fine. I'm looking forward to this chat. So thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. So I'm going to give you the first question that we give everyone on their first outing for our FTT chats, and that is, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Jeppe, and I'm one of two co-founders of the company Pleo, based in Copenhagen, but with another headquarter in the UK. Um, at Pleo, we help mainly small and mid-sized businesses on buying stuff for work. So allowing you to actually purchase things for work, but also helping you with the collection of the tedious receipt, categorizing, passing it on to your accounting system, etc. So currently we're serving 13,000 businesses with our product. About 300 people across six different markets, and just having a lot of fun and enjoying the ride.
Excellent. So good. So we're going to talk about startups and your business, and other aspects of fintech and financial services. So I'm always very interested in sort of the seeds of a startup and the seeds of an idea. And I know your father worked as an accountant. How did that kind of shape how you helped put together Pleo?
Yeah, so more or less my whole family were accountants, and I grew up with that. And when I turned 13 or 14, I started working in my dad's practice and was just doing basic stuff. And one of the things that I could do at the time was take those card statements or bank statements, and literally I would have a shoebox of paperwork of receipts, and I would do this reconciliation process, the matching between receipts and transactions, just to make sure that everything was in order. And you know then stuff happens. You go to university, and I had my first few jobs, but then eventually I became a CFO, and the whole thing about the hassle of the receipts and stuff like that was just still a massive problem 20 years later. So
Mm.
you could say that the dots got connected a bit when we stepped out, and we started Pleo to solve some of these pain points.
Mm. No, it's just, yeah, I think the accountancy world called you back in almost. So
Yeah, almost.
it's interesting. So a while ago, this is I think when I was first starting out working in New York, a senior person at my company said that companies should not run on their staff's credit rating. He kind of meant
Mhm.
paying for things like a dinner or office supplies with your own money, and then waiting for those sort of receipts to come in. And it seems like it wouldn't be a big problem, but I mean, when you're a 24-year-old in New York, that is a problem, waiting for this type of reconciliation on the money that you put out just to sort of do your job. Do you have any sort of like stats or numbers on how big a problem this is with having just being able to buy stuff for work?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, right? And one of the advantages of being in our shoes is that almost any person that have ever had a job can relate to the pain point that we are solving. Either because of the things you described, that you have to pay out of pocket and essentially become the bank of your business, which is a bit unfair, you could say.
Mm.
But also, I would say all the paperwork. I mean, many people, they're like, yeah, that day of the month where I needed to do my expense report was just so bad. I just hate the expense report. So I think almost any person has had a bad experience with this whole thing. But you're absolutely right that asking your employees to pay out of pocket, it's a bit of an unfair ask, you could say. And I think the whole talent agenda, the whole people agenda today, I think is in general a lot more respectful of the employees. And I think
Mm.
the whole talent market is getting more and more competitive. So I think companies are becoming more and more aware of how can we turn our workforce into becoming more engaged? And I think simple stuff like, removing friction in with tools and stuff like that is important. And I think that's why that's one of the reasons why we're having a lot of success, is that the companies we work with, they generally respect their workforce, and they want to set them up for success, and they feel they're doing that with Pleo.
Interesting. So I'll tell you, I once ran the Startup Bootcamp FinTech program when it ran in London about 6 years ago, and we saw a similar type of startup to this that tried to come into the program, and I completely agree with you. I think this is a problem that most people can relate to. However, it was interesting to see them present in front of that program's banking partners, because there were so many people in the room that were very dismissive that the problem even existed. It was very strange. I mean, there were a lot of people that found it a strange reaction. I think I had someone say to me, well, I've got my corporate Amex card. Why is this a problem? And so,
Yeah.
what type of business is this service, this product for? And have you ever come
Yeah.
across this type of skepticism that,
Yeah.
the expenses is a problem at all?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, of course. I think, any product that comes out and wants to be a bit edgy and bring a new perspective would of course not be for every company. And that's the same with us. We do meet, let's say, more traditional CFO run businesses that are a bit more like controlling, or I actually like the circumstance that my employees pay out of pocket, because then they're a bit more they think they're more considerate, or it's even good for cash flow and stuff like that. But so we meet them, of course, we do. But I would say in general, we see more of a trend towards, we got to set people up for success, and we got to show them some degree of trust, because it's already implied in the working relationship. It is a trustful relationship. So I would say that the more traditional CFO style, the more controlling one, I have the feeling that it's a bit of a dying generation.
Interesting. I've heard that often in fintech as well. So we'll move on.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Pleo is also one of those fintech companies that's always on the startups to watch list, and you've been named sort of startup of the year and fastest growing startup. And we hear a lot in the industry, not just in fintech, but this whole sort of startup culture about rocket ship growth, and phrases are bandied about like, get shit done, and move fast and break things, and everything is sort of sacrificed at the altar of that growth. And we've seen recently there have been a few people that have started to question that mindset of whether there's other ways to have a successful, fast-growing startup, where things like employee culture that you've mentioned earlier on in our chat, or regulations and compliance. How do you sort of how do you how do you balance that? What is the other terms of success?
Yeah.
Is there another route? Oh, I want to hear from you. I'm going to stop babbling.
Yeah.
What is that other route to unicorn status?
Yeah, I think being a venture-backed company, there's no way you can deny that growth is a part of success. That is just the case. Investors, they come in, they want to 10x their investment. Growth is just implied in that. So then it's more a matter of how do you achieve that, and can you actually grow without sacrificing some of these important things? And you could say, being a fintech, there is a limitation to how much you can break, or you should break. It's just a different nature, right? And there are certain things we take care of customers' money. We are a regulated company. There are important duties like monitoring transactions for fraud and money laundering and all those kind of things. And we really need to be considerate and careful and diligent here. So there's a limit to how fast we can go here. It's just we need to be accurate. But then there are other areas, potentially, how we acquire customers, how we bring them on, stuff like that. Here we need to be really ambitious. And it's interesting that you mentioned culture, because I'm a big believer that at the stage we are in now in Pleo, where you could say that the product really works, and we have a lot of customers, and they are super happy. The difference between having reached exactly that stage and massive success is people. It is really nothing else than people, but it's unfortunately also the most difficult part, right? Because the foundation is there and it works. So now it's all about, how can we attract the best people? How can we set them up for success? How can we retain them, make sure that they have a career here in Pleo? How can we ensure that we are organized in a way where everyone drives in the same direction and are super motivated? All that kind of stuff. And here you could say, culture is a key thing, but there is a lot of other things that is also key. Your organizational structure, the way you drive OKRs, KPIs, the kind of leaders you hire. So, but that whole people game is just so important. And I've come across companies and probably also been a bit naive myself in the beginning that, you think you can just keep the same culture and you can keep being a culturally led business. That's not easy when you grow. It's just not easy. You need structure around that. So I would say culture is still a very key component in this, and we want to keep parts of the culture which is so important, but we also need to just realize that it's a moving organism and it will develop. And some of the values, they meant one thing 3 years ago. Today they mean something else because we're a big organization. So it's a little bit of a balance. How do you maintain these things while still allowing for it to mature and grow and over time become slightly different. But if you ask me that one question, I always get it. What keeps you up at night? It's the people part. It's the most difficult one at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's the number one reason why startups fail. It's most CEOs say people and hiring is what keeps them up at night. So I agree. Talk about people all day. So we're coming to the end of our chat, unfortunately. So I need to ask, what's next for Pleo?
Yeah, what's next? So we're doing a lot of cool stuff on the product. We want to have an even broader position in the market. We are soon coming out with some interesting new features around being able to pay bills and looking into ways of financing your purchases and stuff like that. So you'll be seeing a lot more from us from a product perspective. And then obviously from a growth perspective as well, moving into new markets. In certain markets, we will also be maturing for taking on bigger customers. Today, we're very much all the way down to one-man companies and up to about 1,000 employees, but we are slowly moving further up in the market. So I would say the reach and the product is probably what we're investing more into.
It sounds like you're moving into the buy now, pay later space, moving into that camp with the financing.
Yeah,
exactly right. No? Excellent. It'd be interesting to see. Definitely. Thank you so much for sitting down for our FTT chat. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was wonderful speaking with you.
Thanks.